Okay, episode 13. It was all going so well. So we voted on what colour I was going to finish the guitar. Transparent White Burst won convincingly. However, and there's no easy way to say this, I messed it up. To put this into context, obviously there's a tight deadline in terms of getting this guitar finished for the competition. It's also the case that I've put a couple of things on hold to get this guitar finished off, and I'm getting to the point now where I simply can't put those things off any longer. So I've really had no option but to plough ahead with this, and the upshot is the guitar is now white. I understand there might be some disappointed people out there. I'm sorry, it's not what I intended, but as you'll see, things took a turn and I didn't really have any option. Basically what happened is, as I started to lay down the light white coats that I would need to have the translucent finish, for some reason the paint just split all over the body. Lots and lots of fish eyes. Realistically, there was nothing I could do at that point. My options were to let the paint dry sufficiently that I could sand it off again and restart the finishing process. I simply don't have time to do that. The other option was to just bite the bullet and paint it white. So that's what I've chosen to do. Not ideal. I feel like I've let some people down. I'm sorry about that. I won't be surprised that at some point in the future you'll see me making a translucent white burst guitar on this channel. We'll see. There's not a lot of footage of the spraying process because I don't really want to expose my cameras to that environment, but I did do a little bit, and I think you'll see that even at the outset, before I'd put any paint on the guitar, it wasn't actually looking that nice in terms of the wood. It looked quite flat in fact, and I don't know if that was because of the grain filler I used or something else in the process, but it didn't look pretty anyway. Having put the first coats of paint down, it was obvious straight away that it just simply wasn't going to work. So it was that point I decided to leave the first coats overnight to harden up as much as I could. So first thing this morning I came into the workshop, put the heater on for a good hour before I came down and started to do some work, got it up to temperature. I thought just for one last shot I'd put a bit of a burst around the guitar to see how it looked. It looked horrible. So then I just proceeded to lay some coats of paint down onto it. I'm reasonably happy with how it's come out. It's not a white paint, it's a kind of a vintage white. Looks quite nice. The question now is whether I can get it to polish up given the time constraints, but I'm going to leave it for a couple of days and then we'll give it a go at getting a polish on it. So once again, I can only apologise for not doing what I said I was going to do. I would have loved to have been able to do it. I would have loved for it to have come off, but not this time, I'm afraid. Okay, with that out of the way, we'll get back to the build. So out of the gun, this paint is not glossy, it's quite flat, there's a bit of a texture to it, a bit orange peely. So to get any chance of a decent gloss, this needs to be colour sanded and polished. Normally I would machine polish it, however this paint has only been on a couple of days. Ordinarily I'd want to leave this kind of 3 or 4 weeks to harden up properly. Obviously we don't have that luxury of time in this particular instance. So I'm going to give this an initial polish knowing full well that at some point in the future I'll have to come back and do it again just to give it its final polish. So the process I'm going to go through is colour sanding or wet sanding. So I've got a jug of warm water. It's got a little bit of hand soap in there just to help draw the dirt and any grit or dust from the paper into the water and keep it there. Because this paint is soft, I'm going to go quite gently with it. So I've got some 800 wet and dry and an eraser that I'm going to use as a kind of soft flexible pad for when I'm sanding. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to give the paper a minute or two in the water just to soften up a little bit. And then I'm simply going to work this paper around in small circles. Rinsing it off regularly. Now I'm deliberately keeping away from the edges with the block. If you're going to burn through anywhere, it will be on an edge. I'll come back over and I'll just give those a light going over by hand. So I spent a little bit of time going over that. I've dried it off and I'm just going to try and catch the finish in the light. And you won't be able to see this because it's tiny details, but I can see that there's still a fair amount of pitting on the top of this. So I'm going to get a fresh piece of paper and give it another going over. So I've gone right over the whole guitar now with 800 grit wet and dry. It's got rid of all the orange peel. It's a lot flatter now, but it's still not in any way shiny. So I'm going to have to go over the whole thing again with 1200 wet and dry, and from there polish it. I think all told I'm about 4 hours into hand sanding this now. Okay, so it's quite some time later. I've been all over this now with 1200 wet and dry. So it's a lot smoother, but it's still very, very flat. There's no sheen to it. So the next step is to take some T-cut and a nice soft cloth and just work my way around this, polishing it up. And this is really going to take quite a long time. And it's simply a case of just buffing this in little circles. You might be able to see on the cloth there it's taking off plenty of material. And then just buff it up. So I've got the whole guitar to do like that, so I shall see you back in a little while. So that's the polishing done. It's quite hard to really demonstrate this, but hopefully you can see the reflection of the lights in there. It's not brilliant. It will need going over again once the paint's shrunk back properly, but I'm happy with it for now. Just turn it over. And again you can see, nice and shiny. Well, with the polishing done, that's the end of the finishing process. I'm not afraid to say it's been an absolute emotional roller coaster for me the last few days. Obviously we're now kind of running up against the deadline for this competition. There's only a few days to go. So next episode we shall be assembling the guitar, getting it all put together. Hopefully we won't encounter any major problems. Get it put together, get it finished off, quick sound demo, job's good 'un. So thanks for joining me, and I hope that at least a few of you like the finish as much as I do, and I look forward to seeing you on the next one. So thanks a lot, bye bye.